Welcome to Pathways, where God meets you wherever you are. Thank you for joining us in part 3 of our Teaching Tuesday series on surviving the storms of life. In the previous weeks, we heard Tito Eli Lademora share with us these lessons: grow in our friendship with Jesus and act on Jesus' word. Join me in prayer to prepare us for this week's lesson. Dear Jesus, thank you for counting me as your friend. Help me to be a good friend. Thank you for talking to me today. Help me to listen well. Thank you for providing for my needs. Help me to use these blessings well. And thank you for calming the storm. Help me to grow in trusting you. Amen. Sit back, listen, and be blessed. Jesus is meeting you now, wherever you are.
Do you recall the first two lessons we have learned from the story of the coming of the storm? Lessons on how to survive the storms in our life. Recall the first lesson, which is to grow in our friendship with Jesus. Then the second lesson, act on Jesus' word. Today we continue with our reflection on Matthew 8, verse 23 to 27. Verse 26 reads, He said to them, Why are you terrified, O you of little faith? Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was great calm. Jesus somehow must have been disappointed by the reaction of his disciples to the turbulence at hand. He must have expected more from them, his disciples, whom he has taught and trained and exposed to the workings of his ministry. This must have led him to chide them by saying, Why are you terrified, O you of little faith? He could have continued on with the rebuke of his disciples without doing anything to stop the storm. He knows full well that this will stop eventually and the calm will be restored. I believe he felt the disciples needed another miracle to increase their faith. That is why he took authority over the winds and the waves and stopped the turbulence and brought back calmness in the sea. In seeking the Lord's help, a man once came to Jesus. He fell on his knees, weeping, and said, I believe, help my unbelief. We read this in Mark 9, verse 24. The man's request is startling in its paradoxical phrasing. It's quite thought-provoking. How can the man say he believes and at the same time ask for help in overcoming unbelief? Most of us can identify with this man from time to time. It is the acknowledgement of our inadequacy that allows God to work in our lives. As always, we can ask for what we need. When we doubt, we can ask for more faith. When we are wavering in our resolve to follow, we can ask for more resolve. When we are unwilling to obey, we can ask to be made willing. An unbeliever has no interest in having more faith or being made willing to obey, but the believer knows that his faith and obedience are always deficient, and he will frequently ask God to enable him to live the life that pleases him. If left to our own strength and our own faith, we would never make it. I believe, help my unbelief. This is at once a statement of faith and admission that our faith is far from perfect. This is what the disciples did when they walked up Jesus and asked him to save them. It was an admission that their faith is far from perfect. This brings us to our third lesson on surviving the storms. The lesson is, bring our failings to Jesus. Bring our failings to Jesus. It took the situation of a quarantine that made me realize my inadequacies, particularly in doing housework. Staying at home has made me conscious that there are many things needed to be done to put the house in order. Sadly, for the most part, I was ill-equipped to do much of the work as I have been used to a job outside of the house. I brought this up to Jesus during my prayer time, and sure enough, I was given the patience and the resolve to learn to do the housework. This week, or during your prayer time, bring up your failings to Jesus, your doubts, fears, lapses, and other inadequacies. Use the praying points to ask Jesus to reveal to you in what way you should depend on Him more in dealing with the storms in your life. Let us close with a prayer. Dear Jesus, I believe in you. I trust in you. I put my life in your hands. Let your power and your grace fill in my areas of lack, that I may not be found wanting in my faith in you and in my resolve to obey your holy will for my life. I ask this in your most holy and compassionate name. Amen. Have a blessed day.